Good afternoon. My name is Marcie Rodriguez, and I am the CFO for Cave Creek Unified School District. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be there with you today, but I did want to share some information. Over the 20 years that I've been in school business, I have always sought out ways to be able to communicate data and tell the story to our governing boards. So, a few months back, when I was at Agua Fria, I shared some information with our governing board to kind of tell the story of what our district is about and how we compare to other districts. At that time, I had two new board members. I had two members that had only been on the board for a couple of years, and then a veteran board member. So I felt that I needed to kind of give them a picture of who we were as a district. And I used data to do that. So sometimes we get wrapped up in our data and we get wrapped up in our acronyms. So how can we break it down and draw the picture? So what does data tell us? So today we're going to talk about that telling of a story. And I know Jacqueline and Lori have been sharing information with you as well. So I hope you find this information helpful. So the data that I used to tell the story was national ranking, average teacher pay, instructional spending, demographics, tax rates, and budget carry forward. So national rankings, wow. That does tell a story when we look at it. And it's important because when we talk to our legislators and we explain to them the competition that our children face in the world, in the nation, we are funded 48th. We spend in the lowest percentile. There's only a couple other states below us. National average is $13,187, and the per pupil spending for Arizona is $8,773. Arizona also ranks 42nd in teacher pay. It's about an $8,000 difference. And we can say, well, that could be attributed to the cost of living in other places, which is true. So here's the graph. Here's what this looks like. So you can see New York, New Jersey, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all eastern states. And then look at the bottom. Look at the bottom 5. Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada, Oklahoma, all southern western states. So interesting, the demographics, right? And there could be something said for the cost of living and how much it costs to pay teachers and such in those other states. But there is a significant difference even with the average. And this just gives you a picture of that. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to share some links and some data resources for you as we go through. So average teacher pay. Now this tells you the story of, can I get new teachers? That's why it's so important. It tells you where you value, how you spend your money, tells you what you value, right? So we're going to talk about the average teacher pay, and here again, all of the states and how Arizona ranks with the other states. Now, something I found interesting as well was, okay, so nationwide, yeah, we compete with teachers from all over the country, but what about my peer districts? How do I compare to them? Because in reality, that's who I'm really competing against for teachers. Very few teachers that we recruit come to Arizona because we have good pay. Most of the teachers that we recruit from out of state are coming here because they have family, because they want to be in a warmer climate. But if we have Tolleson Union next to Agua Fria, what does Tolleson Union pay their teachers? Because chances are Tolleson Union, Glendale Union, those are the districts that would maybe the high school teachers would go to if they didn't come to us. So when I look at this picture, I'm sharing this with my governing board, we look pretty good. right? Top 7% highest paid school districts in the state. What I found very interesting about this data and the story that it told me was, although Glendale Union and Tempe Union, who are our competitors, which there are peer districts on the Arizona's classroom site fund spending report that the Auditor General puts out every year. So those are why I pulled these districts, just to look at what our peer districts are doing. And Glendale Union, Tempe Union, they paid more than Agua Fria. But look at their teachers' experience. So the percentage of the first year, first 3 years of teaching at Agua Fria is 39% of our teachers were in that first 3 years of teaching. At Glendale Union and Tempe Union, only 7%. So what that told me was, though, although our average pay was a little bit lower, it may be because I have newer teachers. And if I have more experienced teachers, my average might be above theirs, because we know we pay our more experienced teachers more. Again, the data tells a story. The other thing that I always want to make sure that I'm giving the governing board is that futuristic picture. We can always tell them what has happened and where we are at the current moment. But hey, coming down the line, there are some things that may get us up above that line. Take Arizona up above that 42% in average teacher pay or 48% in spending. One of the things that happened last year, is the Prop 208. We hope to see some of that money soon, and it will go to teacher pay. Instructional spending. And again, we want to make sure that we are investing our money in the classroom. Big push a few years ago that for every dollar nickel, 55 cents should be spent in the classroom. So we look at that every year. Are we spending money in the classroom? Are we spending the majority of our money in the classroom towards instruction? And why is that important? Well, that's important because we want to make sure we're giving our kids the highest quality education. And when governing boards look at this data, they're making decisions about pay, about program. And I know that our governing board always, and I think probably the majority of them, we want the money to go in the classroom. We don't want it to go into administration. So we have this wonderful report, Arizona Auditor General's Classroom Spending Report. Now, the data in this report identifies the areas of operation and spending and efficiencies. Now, it compares our district to state averages and to our peer averages. I know this is really small, but I'm hoping that all of you had an opportunity to look at your classroom spending report, see how you rank amongst other districts. Now, I want to step further with my governing board because I can tell you what that report says about us, but how are we ranking in our peer districts? So what I wanted to point out to our governing board is how we are spending our money and what areas we're investing our money in. So when you look at this picture again, I can see that there are some districts who are spending more money in instruction than we are. But is it because they have more money to spend? Do they have capital override, M&O override, more grant money, impact aid? So as you can see, our classroom spending is at 4878, where Flagstaff's is at 5039. But when you look at Flagstaff and how much they have total spending, it's 9,655 compared to our 8,776. So the data tells me the story. It tells me, although they're spending more than us in instruction. Their overall available money to spend is higher than us. Now, this is the graph that shows you that, right? So percentage of dollars in the classroom in instruction. Glendale Union, again, they beat us out in teacher pay. They beat us out in classroom spending. I really want to know what's going on over at Glendale Union because they obviously have a formula that allows them to put more money in the classroom and more money in teachers' pay. So I would look at them and say, okay, so is it because they have lower administration? Because I don't think they have more money to spend than us. If you look at that last graph, they didn't have more money to spend than us. But then where is Flagstaff? Oh, look at, they're all the way down here on the end. So that data appeared that they were spending more money in the classroom, but the percentage of money they're spending is not as high as us. So this allows us to share with our governing board what we're doing is good, it's efficient, and we're investing in the classroom. The other data that you have available, this is from the Arizona School Report Card. So you all have this data out on your report cards. Please check that report card because that's a very public document. But this is based on data you would have filed with your school by school budgets or school level budgeting. As you can see here, what story does this tell me when I'm looking at the data? So we show data to our governing board, but let's tell them the story behind the data. What this tells me is that I have 2 Title I schools at Agua Fria High and Desert Edge. If I look at the per pupil funding, $75.83 and $73.39, how does that compare to our non? So we want to always make sure that we're not supplanting, that we are not using federal dollars to compensate for what M&O should cover. And this tells me the story. This tells me we are investing more money in our Title I schools. You can look right here from local expenditures, not federal. But I've got this anomaly out here. I've got Canyon View. What's going on at Canyon View? Why are they spending more money than our Title I schools? I have a problem. So when I look at that, I know why. It's a new school and it only has 3 grades. So what happens when a school is not fully built out is you still have those fixed overhead costs. So I can tell the story, right? I can explain to the governing board, it's okay. I know why. And this will change next year when they have their senior class. Demographics. Boy, oh boy, demographics get looked at a lot, don't they? And they do tell us a story about the makeup of our community. They're very important. You need to make sure that we're always taking care of our most vulnerable populations. So demographics in Agua Fria kind of look like this. Very diverse. We have Agua Fria and Desert Edge. These are our 2 Title I schools, and you can see large population Hispanic. When you look at the Millennium and Verado, which are not our Title I schools, they are about a 50-50. You can see kind of the split here. And then Canyon View, again, about a 50-50. This tells us the story. We might need to put additional resources at our Title I schools, which we already have title money for, but they also have communities that maybe we need to communicate with differently, and that's what we found. Parent liaisons, super important, and the governing board saw this and supported the administration because we drew the picture. Free reduced lunch, we know that also sometimes is correlated with the ethnicity of our students, and that is definitely the case here at Agua Fria or at Agua Fria. tax rates. Oh my. So governing boards are responsible for setting tax rates. So we want to make sure we're giving them all the information they need to be able to set those tax rates and feel comfortable with any questions that the community may have when they get their tax bills. We've all gotten those calls, haven't we? So just tell them a little bit about how the taxes are calculated. Very complex, complicated. Those of us who've been in the business for a while, it took us a while to get our heads around this, I'm sure. A lot of you out there are nodding your head going, yeah, tax rates and setting those tax rates, probably one of the most important things that we do that impact our community, impact their day-to-day expenses. We need to make sure that we are very diligent about setting those tax rates accurately. So the county school superintendent's office, they calculate it for us, right? But we have to check it. So we have two types of tax rates. One is a primary, one is a secondary. Now the primary is based totally on the state equalization formula. Now they have qualifying tax rate. There are other things that go into the primary along with qualifying tax rate that the state sets. So they pretty much set that formula. Now I will tell you, for those of you who have been working in the business for a while, you know, the higher the values of your property, the less state aid you get. I'm learning that real quick over at Cave Creek, let me tell you. And then secondary is bonds and overrides. Now, those are voter approved. And so when you're talking to your governing boards about going out for an election, it's really important that you're sharing the picture and the history of your tax rates. So this would be a graph that I would show my governing board. Hey, governing board, look at what's going on here. So this is really telling. I took the assessed value, which is the blue line, and I laid it over the tax rates, the history. What does this tell you? This tells me that when my assessed value is increasing, I start to see a decline. Now, what happened in 2015? Look at this. 14-15, property values started dipping. Then they steadily go back up. And then now the property values have exceeded to a point where my tax rate is going down. Now there were bonds sold. There was a big override that was passed. This is the picture that you want to show your governing board, because then you would project this out and say, and if we go for that bond, we pass that override, the tax rate will be going down as the assessed value goes up. This is the beauty of living in a growing district. Now I know a lot of you don't have this luxury of a growing district. Some of you are in decline. With your assessed values probably stay more flat. You don't have a whole lot of new housing going on. Draw your picture. What does your picture tell you? And share that information with your governing board. So budget carry forward became a topic this year in the process that we have at Agua Fria called Meet and Confer. Meet and Confer said, you have $6 million in a balance. Carrying that forward, why aren't you investing that $6 million back into the teacher's salary? So why is that budget carry forward important? So I wanted to make sure our governing board understood this. Why is it important? What do we use that budget balance carry forward in? And if we give it all in salaries, what will happen? So just gave a few talking points of why it's important. So reserve for unforeseen expenses, such as a pandemic. Ooh, who would have known? Yes, that happened to us last year. Plans for sustained salary increases. So what if we do have a year where enrollment's declining for whatever reason? we want to make sure that we have a little bit of a reserve so that we can continue to give salary increases. Future planning for opening a new school. We opened a new school, which was part of the reason why we had a balance carry forward. I wanted to make sure that we had enough to hire those new teachers, get that new athletic equipment purchased, textbooks and furniture, and add new staff. Impacts a bond rating from Moody's. Yes. So, due to the fact that we had a steady revenue reserve, we were increased from an AA2 to an AA1 last year. I was very pleased with that. Now, that's important because it allows you to sell bonds at a lower rate, which saves your taxpayers from paying higher interest rates when they paid the bonds back to the investors. So gave them a history. Said, okay, yes, maybe we have a little bit more in reserve than we have in the past. Here's what that history looks like. So then I got the question, well, is that normal? Are we carrying the percentage that every other district carries? Are we carrying more than other districts carry? So I found this great information. I'm going to share a data source with you in a minute that tells me all the carry forward percentages from all the school districts in the state. Now, obviously, I didn't list all 232 districts here. I listed districts that had over 5,000 students and above, just to kind of put in perspective, because you have some outliers when you look at the smaller districts. But you can see here the rankings. So if you look the numbers on the side from 221 and then all the way down to East Valley to Avid, you can see these percentages of carry forward. Pretty telling, right? So we can pretty much say that Agua Fria is in the middle. So their 8% is in a line with not the highest district by any stretch of the imagination, but not the lowest district as well. Now, this is what I equate it to. So I spent a couple of years working for a charter school, worked for ASU Prep. And at ASU Prep, I was always watching our cash flow. Charter schools, they don't have that regular ADM like a lot of school districts do. They really have to work for their enrollment. So I always wanted to have 3 months in reserve. That was my goal. Now, 3 months in reserve is about 25%. That's a lot. Not too many school districts carry 25%. Remember, several years ago, we were capped at 4%. So when you look at your history, you'll probably see there was a year where you were like 2 to 4%. That was because legislation wouldn't allow us to exceed that. Now we can, but do it responsibly. So here's the data. So there is, and I'm sure that you will get copies of the slideshow and you'll have these links. So here is the National Center for Education and Statistics. This is a great resource for all kinds of data. If you want to look at national data, and if you're a data junkie like me, you will. But the Arizona Department of Education, lots of reports out there. They have the superintendent's annual report. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's several hundred pages, like a page for every school district in the state and every charter school in the state. But it also has a database, and you can pull the raw data. That's where I got all the carry forward information. That's where I got a lot of data to look at all the school districts. Now, mind you, it's a little dated, because so it's going to be a year behind, but it still helps you build the picture. You also have the student count information out there. I'm sure you all look at those reports, your state aid report, your October enrollment, your SDER. These are all data points that you can go out and you can grab information from. when you're doing your research to share and tell the story. The Auditor General also, did you know that you can download the data that goes into those annual reports, which was pretty awesome. I didn't realize I downloaded the data. I can manipulate it. I can do pivot tables with it. I can do comparisons with it. It's a wonderful source of information. So we just show you. Here is that. And see right here, data file, Excel format. Awesome. So go out there, look at your data. And then the next statistics. Now, I know some of you are from other counties. I just pulled up Maricopa County because this is the county that the school districts that I work for reside in. And so the county also tax data. So when I want to look at our tax rates compared to other school district tax rates, like I said, Cave Creek now, lowest tax rate in Maricopa County. And it's because our assessed value was so high. That tells me the story, right? But I can't pass an override out there. So we're gonna work on that and see how we can encourage those communities to support our schools. Assessed values as SRP values, got like tax calculations, and then had the average teacher salary. That's where I got that average teacher salary amount. So hopefully I've shared information with you that will help you tell your governing board the story and help them and inform them about the decisions that they have to make and how they can feel comfortable with those decisions and have data that they can share with the community to support the decisions that they make. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll turn it back over to Jacqueline and Lori. Thank you. Have a great day.